absolutely is brought to you by Employee Escape Plan, www.employee escape plan, and that is Mr. Joe Nicasio. He is an amazing coach, an amazing mentor, an amazing advisor, and he knows marketing and systems and the foundational principles of building a business like the back of his hands. He can rattle this off in his sleep, in his dreams, in his nightmares. It doesn't matter. You put him in any situation and he will shine. He knows his stuff, and I have worked with him. He still advises and consults Burned Up Coaching and Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self to be our best selves and grow our business and bring in more leads, help people make more money, and put these principles in place. So I highly recommend Mr. Joe Nicasio, and that again is www.employeeescapeplan.com. Let's see. So I'm going to introduce George, and then we'll bring both George and Dave on, and then Dave can introduce himself because I didn't get a bio for Dave. So George has over 20 years of experience in financial planning. He is devoted to staying on the cutting edge of tax planning and investment strategies. And as a young man, he learned integrity, commitment, service, and excellence, achieving Eagle Scout rank. George has been recognized by the financial industry, community, and his peers for these contributions. Recognized Texas Financial Leader in Forbes. Named 5-star wealth manager for Texas Monthly. Featured as a Dallas-Fort Worth financial section in Forbes again. Recognized as Ryder C. Hulsey Award winner 6 years for his integrity and loyal to his clients. George forms relationships by choosing investments and planning techniques that lead to his clients' confidence in their future. The main test is, can he instill confidence in his clients at the end of the day? George's job is to make sure he can, helping you with life's challenges. That's George's commitments to you. Awesome. You two ready to rock and roll, George and Dave? Awesome. They are ready. Well, you are now live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. Welcome, welcome, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks. We're happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So, Dave, why don't you introduce yourself just real briefly, what you're up to, and then we'll get into the question of the day.
You bet. So George and I work together. We're helping small business owners save money on taxes. I'm one of the chief tax advisors at Financial Gravity, a company that we're both working for. And I'm George's main support guy when it comes there. My background is engineering. I was raised as an engineer, taught college for a little bit, and then consultant with business owners. And that's what I get to do most of the time at Financial Gravity. I've been doing that for the last 5 years.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And then we'll dive a little bit more into how you're doing that, what you guys are up to today. But first, we're going to dive into the theme of the day, which is self-love through forgiveness. And we want to know, how has that showed up for you? And we'll start with George. George, how has self-love through forgiveness showed up for you? How have you dove into this topic of self-love? How have you had to grapple with the topic of forgiveness? How maybe some challenging situations that you had to forgive yourself for? Why don't you share with the audience how this has showed up for you?
Well, it's easy. But life hasn't been easy. I was orphaned when I was 11 after my mother died from ALS, a very grueling and terrible disease, and wound up through the foster care system, and was very fortunate that the good Lord placed me with people and placed people with me that helped me grow and provided for me and protected and gave me the right direction. For example, the Eagle Scout thing was because my scoutmaster took me in with his wife and became my foster parents. I stayed with them until I was 22 years old. So it was a good relationship for me. And so really, it's impossible to forgive others if you can't forgive yourself. It's a rule of law. It is the law of life. How can I forgive you if I don't accept the grace and forgiveness that God gives me? I can't. So, at the end of the day, it's not about us anyway, right? It's about doing the right thing. And the right thing is not to hold grudges towards others and not to hold ourselves in low esteem. We have to hold ourselves in high esteem, because we can't help others if we don't have a good level emotional base ourselves.
Wow, that's powerful.
Just my thinking.
That's powerful, powerful. George, thank you, dude. What a great way to start this interview, man. That was beautiful. And Dave, what about you, man? How has that showed up for you? How has forgiveness shown up for you?
Well, like George, I began with being forgiven by God, going through the whole idea of, I grew up most of my life as an unbeliever in Christianity, and but came to it later in life after I started having children. And I think the power of God's forgiveness through that, my faith in his son, was absolutely awe-inspiring. And to this day, here we're talking 25 years later, it still carries a lot of weight and allows me to function at a much higher level than I thought I did when I was very full of myself and arrogant and thinking I was one of the smartest guys in the room, and really realizing that I'm not. And just the humility that comes with God's forgiveness is key.
Now, that smartest thing in the room, he always says that when he's next to me. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. He says that all the time. I don't know. I think he is. I'm just saying.
I love it. I love it. So you guys are definitely a great duo. I can already feel the resonance. That's awesome. And we're going to dive in a little bit more. Tell us more about your business partnership and like what that looks like and how you serve your clients. Whoever wants to kind of take that away, let's hear more about that.
Well, I've only been with Financial Gravity for about 6 months.
Okay.
I've been a financial planner for many years, and I've been fortunate to be listed in the top 5% of the financial planners for many years, as far as production, if you will, and that's the way they measure it, right? I've managed as much as $100 million personally. And I liked managing a lot less because I can be with my clients and do what's right for them. But I was approached by Financial Gravity to work with them in the Texas area. And I said, well, I'm already doing these things. I really don't see what you can bring to the table for my clients that I'm already bringing. So we start the process of what we call an assessment. An assessment is just, can we save you money or can we not? We'll know after 30 minutes by just asking you some very direct questions and getting some specific information from you. So I did the assessment, and I found that as tax efficient as I was, they saved me $13,000, and they brought to my attention some things I didn't know. Now, they have a room full of, I call them, they're tax professionals that do nothing but analyze the code and find ways to save people money, that primarily in our case, small businesses. And I went in the other day, quite frankly, and I said to them, hey, it's the tax geeks. And they got really offended. They said, we are not tax geeks. We are tax nerds. Geeks do nothing compared to what we know. And they're right. They're right. So I was grateful and honored to come on board because they can give my clients something I was already offering it, but not the extent that they did. I was amazed at some of the legal and morally ethical things that we can do in the tax code to save money. Now, I believe that we have a moral obligation to pay the very smallest amount of tax possible. I also believe that we are more efficient with our money than the government. Mm-hmm. If I want to help someone, I want to give it to them directly. I don't want them to have to go on welfare. And that may not be an appropriate term anymore. Government assistance, whatever the term is, I believe private people can do better in helping others than the government can. And the government probably would agree if on an honest day. I'm sorry, that's an oxymoron. I said honest and government, didn't I? Am I going to get in trouble? Sorry, but that's my thinking. That's just
freedom of speech here.
Take that $5 and go to Starbucks and get you a cup of coffee.
Yes. I love it. I love it. So, Dave, did you have anything to add to that?
No, the whole approach that we start with, we try to be a complete solution provider to a business owner, but it always starts with tax because it goes right to the bottom line. And, business people work hard. And they spend a lot of time doing their thing, and they're aching for an advisor that will come along and help them. And we decided that we could grow much faster if we started working with guys like George all across the country who had the right heartbeat to help business owners the right way, use the tax as the entree, because everybody has universal hatred against overpaying in taxes, lower their risk of audit, give them a better plan, and then basically use that as an introduction to, yeah, this is a company, these are advisors that do help you. They're not out trying to take your money or trying to take the government's money. We're trying to take money away from the government. If we do this thing correctly, the business owner wins, George wins, financial gravity wins. The only entity that doesn't win is the federal and state government, and I'm okay with that.
I am too.
They're already winning enough.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So I write a letter to clients sometimes, our prospective clients, and the headline says, "Stop making the government rich." Now, Joe Nasasio helped me come up with that, by the way. Thank you, Joe. You've been a wonderful influence on me and done a lot for me. I'm grateful for that. I am grateful for that.
Yeah, Joe's a rock star. We're grateful for Joe. Shout out to Joe Nicasio, EmployeeEscapePlan.com. So let's go back a little bit on your journeys. We want to know why you became these finance experts. What was the pathway, in just a couple minutes each that had you get to where you are today, and maybe some of the challenges that shaped your perspective and wisdom on being this financial powerhouse, these financial powerhouses today. And we'll start with Dave. Why don't you start with your journey and some of the challenges you had to overcome?
Well, Financial Gravity's founder, John Pollock, started out in insurance and then had always been in sales. Got a pretty successful business in insurance, moved into financial planning and advising, and actually developed a pretty good income. Is very good at that. And started having a tax situation. And at the time, the news was filled, it was around election time, news was filled with different people running for office that would say the wealthy don't pay their fair share. And John felt like he was overpaying. He was more than paying his fair share. And I would also say, as an aside, I've seen a lot of wealthy individual tax returns, and there is no way that statement holds water. It is simply not true. The wealthy, the top 10% in income pay over 50% of the entire tax bill for the country. So that statement by politicians is completely false. At any rate, John wanted some help, and he would go to different CPAs, the go-to people for assistance on this, and kept getting the same answer, which was, you earn what you earn, you pay what you pay. And he just felt like there had to be something else. And so he kept digging around and wound up learning about a company called Tax Coach, and learned that there actually are things. There are over 70,000 pages of tax regulation and court case history that supports the tax law, and that there are things that can be done. We began to codify that, and that's what basically became Financial Gravity, and realized that if you own a business, and it almost doesn't matter how much income you make, if you own a company earning business, then you're probably overpaying in taxes. We can use that tax law to help you lower your tax bill.
Wow. And why did you become this tax and financial professional?
Well, I spent a lot of time in engineering. The first 21 years was as an electrical engineer. The last 10 years as at General Motors, largest company at the time on the planet. This before Walmart passed them and they downsized when Obama took them over. And then I tried my hand at consulting, business consulting. I love that, had a heartbeat for that. I taught graduate school at a local business college in Detroit, Michigan for a while, and wore myself out. And a friend of mine suggested I go into financial services, and I immediately thought that was a terrible thing because it was quote unquote sales, and people in 150% polyester suit do sales, the used car sales guy model. And but learned very quickly about consultative selling, and I just took an engineering approach. I like solving problems. Engineers are good problem solvers. So that's the approach I took, and everybody appealed to that. The same thing happened. We just backed into the tax thing as basically the client acquisition model to get to the other things. When I go to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, if I say I'm a financial advisor or an insurance salesman, I become radioactive and nobody will talk to me the rest of the meeting. So instead, I say I help small business owners save money on taxes, and then I become the belle of the ball because everybody hates overpaying taxes.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. Awesome, man. So you knew that you could position yourself in a way that is desirable. The framing of how you share what you do with people is critical. So everyone listening, is your hook, is your title, is that magnetic? Are you shooting yourself in the foot before people have a chance to even get to know you? Or do you have something that people say, ooh, what's that? I want to know more. So Dave, you've really gotten into that, and I love how you said you do consultative sales and you solve people's problems. You start creating the plan of, here's where you want to go, here's what's stopping you, here's what you need to implement. I can help you get there to be able to produce that result. And I actually have an electrical engineering degree, so you and I are totally resonating, man. Love it. I love it, man. So that's awesome.
Maybe I'm not the smartest one on the call. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, George, maybe you have a better story. We'll hear your story.
Well, my story is pretty simple. I was fortunate to, my first job was traveling internationally 75% of the time.
Wow.
And I was visiting over 30 countries. I got lonely. I got tired of being gone all the time. So through a series of things, about 25 years ago, 26, I got involved with financial services. And my whole thing is, I don't know, was it Zig Ziglar who said, you get what you want in life by helping other people get what they want?
Yep.
I really bought into that. And peace of mind financially. I started investing just because I had some extra money and I didn't have time to do things in 1985, and just in some mutual funds. And I happened to have, $25,000 because I didn't have any expenses. I was gone all the time. And I invested it in the market in 85, and I pulled out in August because it went from 25 to 48 in 18 months. Wow. And I thought, no, this is too good to be true. And guess what? It was. Remember that Thursday or that day in August that the market dropped 22%? I kind of had one of the things they teach as a financial planner, the CFP part of it, it's the CFP is a CFP board certified financial planner. It's a 13-hour exam that you study for 2.5 years to pass.
Wow. And
the pass ratio when I took it was 50%. So it's very grueling. I never knew more about financial planning than the day I passed the CFP exam. Dave knows more than me now.
It's a hard test.
It is. But at any rate, I got into the financial planning because I wanted to help people. It just making money and building wealth for myself just wasn't enough. And I always wondered, I thought, what if I could find a millionaire that would take me under his wing and teach me what he did just because he's a good guy? Well, sadly, there's a lot of millionaires, but, well, I won't say anymore. How they get there, a lot of times, we may not like to be a part of that. So I was able to self-learn. So what I bring to the table now is I want to help other people learn how to be financially free and not have the burden of living from paycheck to paycheck, and and have the peace of mind, literally, that comes from not having to worry about paying your bills. And if you start early, it's easy. Yeah. You know what the eighth wonder of the world is, according to Einstein?
Compounding interest.
Yes. See, I'm not the smartest one in the room. I knew that. Isn't that good? So that's the whole thing. You can take just a little bit and start when you're young and quit when you're middle aged, and you're set for life.
Yeah.
And sadly, you get caught up in coffee. And if we take that $5 we're spending 5 times a week and put it and pay ourselves instead of paying Starbucks, you'll be very wealthy.
Yeah. And one thing I totally resonate with this, because the very first book, personal development book I ever read was called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And it's an amazing book. Also, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. Jeff Olson was Darren Hardy's mentor. Both of them are very similar in principle. But that mentality of doing a little bit each day, the 1% better, the Kaizen principle of a little bit better every single day, over time will transform everything. So I highly recommend those 2 books for our audience to go check those out. The Compound Effect as well as The Slight Edge, and I'll link those up in the show notes as well. But that's perfect, George. I love that.
Let me mention one that I give to younger people especially. It's called The Millionaire Next Door. And that most of your grandparents probably were millionaires and you didn't know it, for most people.
Wow.
Because what they did is they quietly saved. They never made a lot of money, most of them, compared to today's standards. But they were millionaires, and they just never said a lot about it.
Wow.
Because they were used to setting the money aside and living off what they have. You know, remember the old days when you used to get pay stubs?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when you got your paycheck out, did you have a pay stub at some point?
Yeah.
Did you ever look at it?
Yeah.
Well, if you did, what was the first thing you might have looked at?
The number, how much I made?
The take-home pay, right?
Yeah.
And then you go back and you look at all the deductions.
Yep.
So you learn to live off of what you take home. And so it's the same theory here.
Wow.
You pay yourself first and forget it's even there. And 401ks are a great tool for that, 403bs. There's other tools too. And then you get to where you don't even miss it. And one day you wake up and you've got $500,000 in the bank just because you're a good saver. Even if you make 4 or 5%, you'll get there. It just takes a little less time.
Right.
A little more time, rather.
Right. So do you think that most people have the awareness of this knowledge of, hey, I know I should be saving, but they're just simply not doing it yet? Or what's the breakdown in having more millionaires in our society right now?
Well, I think that people get preoccupied with day-to-day life, whether it's finances or anything else, taking the kids to soccer, getting groceries. I got to go work my 40 hours plus usually. I'm tired. I'm going to have a glass of wine and go to bed. Maybe read something. Probably watch television or Facebook.
Right.
Just saying. Yeah. Then they put it out of mind because it's kind of unpleasant. It's kind of like people think about whether or not they're going to die. I'd rather not think about it. Someday I'm going to die, but I'm not going to think about it today. Well, someday I'm going to have to retire. Someday I'm going to have to pay for college. But right now, I got to pay the mortgage and buy groceries. Well, even if we are just more efficient on our grocery buying, we can probably save $50 to $100 a month.
Yeah.
You know, even if we just don't go to Starbucks a couple of times less a week. I'm really hounding on Starbucks because I know that younger people especially like to go there, you know. But to give you an idea, though, on the impact, we had a client the other day we were helping together, and she makes net $50,000 or so, but she's paying 48% in taxes. And there were several things. Yeah, there were several things that she can do. In her case, for instance, her and her husband. I'm not mentioning any names, so her and her husband weren't filing jointly just because they didn't like it. Okay, they were doing several things. So just a few simple things we could show her to get her down to 25%, and that's with her paying 15 or 16% basically in self-employment. So self-employment plus your 9% income tax versus 48%, that's a pretty good deal. And all it did for her is free up money that she can spend on her future. Now, when we showed her this, I made her promise it was going to go into her retirement. Okay, so all we did there, and we do that on a regular basis, is take money you're overpaying in taxes. By the way, Forbes magazine, which is one of my favorites, obviously, Forbes says that 93% of small business owners overpay their taxes. 93%. And often it's just a way of restructuring things, or quite frankly, it's always a matter of just restructuring things, doing things a little bit differently, and, you know, taking advantage of the existing tax law. It's a sin to overpay your taxes. It's a sin. Everybody say it with me. It's a sin.
It's a sin.
It's a thank you. You got it.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
So I love that we're diving into some practical steps of just putting a couple bucks that we're spending on Starbucks or wherever it might be into something else. And I love that we're also spotlighting and illuminating how some people, most people, 93% of small business owners are overpaying on their taxes. And it's just that awareness, like for everyone listening, how long are you going to wait till you actually go see someone to find out how much money you're really losing out on? How long are you going to keep making excuses that you're hanging out with the kids, you're too busy, blah, 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 blah. Instead, make it a priority to save this money, to really get the most that you can and not sin on overpaying on your taxes. Really get the money that you deserve. You're putting all this hard work and energy and effort into making the money. It is then your responsibility to keep as much of it as you possibly can. So think about that. Think about how much the percentage is that you're paying. Are you 100% certain and confident that you're getting the most that you can, or are you curious if there's just a little bit more that you could be saving, or even a lot of bit more that you could be keeping and taking home, or putting into some kind of retirement account or somewhere that actually makes you your money back?
Another part of the reason people don't start right away is they think, well, I've got 30 years. I can start that after 5 years from now.
My next raise.
Yeah, my next raise. Exactly. Well, let's think about how long 30 years really is. That's 360 months. Now, 360 months isn't all that long, is it?
No.
Yeah. So if you wait a month, you've got 359 months.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take the focus off the number of years and to the number of months, well, now you've got my attention because you've disturbed me.
Right.
And in this case, I want to disturb people. I want to understand that they don't have forever. And the right time to start is now, not tomorrow, not the next day, but now.
Yeah. I love that concept of agitating, disturb, agitate, get into action, kind of poke and prod those pain points. And I think a lot of people have these blind spots and uncertainty that they cover up. They just say, I'll deal with it later, or I think I'm doing my best, but I'm sure it'll all work out. And that lack of certainty, the lack of clarity is costing people and potentially future generations, your kids and your kids' kids, their ability to be prosperous because you didn't put in that foundational work. So as a parent, what are you modeling for your children?
And for younger people, I think the temptation is, well, I always have Social Security. Well, do you really think we will?
Oh my gosh.
I don't know that I'm going to get Social Security, and I'm almost 61. I'm old. But, I don't know that I'm going to get it.
Yeah. I think anyone who counts on receiving money from a source that you weren't responsible for, that is irresponsible for you to count on that. And be the person in integrity, responsible, financial integrity, to create that foundation for yourself. So I'm curious, Dave, how has this showed up for you? How has dealing with people who have these blind spots, who just say, I'll deal with it later, how have you noticed that, and how have you helped your clients deal with that, or what perspective do you take when challenging this and kind of digging into this?
Well, I think the biggest blind spot for a business owner, and by the way, I love working with business owners. They're hardworking people. They have a dream. They're working towards a dream, as opposed to basically just a job holder. Not to put anybody in a box, but there's some security there. Untrue security in a W-2 position. Yeah. I really think our security lies between what's working between our ears and not in the fact that I have a position with a company. But a business owner understands that I wake up today and I'm unemployed. I have to go to work and I have to produce something for my clientele. I have to support my family, my business family, my employees, and so forth. So they're more honest. They come with some integrity that they've earned, basically. But they're so focused on their business. One blind spot is, and George and I hear this all the time, is, my CPA handles this thing that you guys talk about.
Right.
And I will give you everything. George mentioned the CFP for financial professionals. The CPA exam is right up there as one of the hardest exams on the planet. I fully give highest credit to those that in the accounting profession that get through that. It is a stinking hard test.
Yeah.
That said, though, once I go into business for myself and I do work for business professionals, I tend to start leaning on, if I put this number in this box, you don't get audited, I don't do extra work, it's more efficient, my profits are higher. And I basically fall into what I call a first-generation CPA. They're dealing with history. They're dealing with numbers that have already occurred. And CPA doesn't proactively give advice in terms of what I should do. Maybe they'll tell you that you should change. into a new entity, go from a sole proprietor to an S corporation. But frankly, that's rare. So first generation CPAs are very good at documenting and producing tax preparation. So they'll prepare your taxes, they'll do your bookkeeping, they'll deal with history, but they won't proactively tax plan. Still, business owners give them credit for proactive tax planning when they don't really do it. So it's a quandary. So I separate CPAs to first generation, second generation. The second generation folks do. In fact, half of Financial Gravity's business is to train CPAs to do proactive tax planning. So one of the things I get asked most often when we finish a tax plan with somebody, especially in a time of year like in this first quarter, well, what are you going to do to help me with last year? Unfortunately, without a time machine, I can't proactively tax plan retroactively. So we can't go back in time and produce this stuff. This is moving forward. Well, where were you guys last year when I needed you? Sorry, we were here. You just hadn't found us yet. And as a result, we moved them from there. But the first blind spot, the biggest blind spot, and I call it our first hurdle, is, I have a CPA who's doing this for me when they, in fact, aren't. And the way around that, I always ask, oh, that's wonderful. I love the fact that you have a CPA that's doing that. So your CPA has given you an idea that saved you $1,000 last year in taxes. Blank stare, crickets. No, I always wondered about that. How do you guys do it? Well, we average $21,000 per business owner that meets us. And I get a, what? Yeah, that's an average. So you might be lower, you might be higher. It just depends. You need to come, get our 30-minute assessment, we'll find out.
And we have a book. The name of our book is?
It's by our chief tax strategist. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. It's on my desk. I'm about 3 pages into it.
Yeah.
But our chief tax strategist, Ed Lyon, just wrote it. It's produced, and it's available to anybody who has an assessment meeting with George. But it's on the new tax code and how it impacts a business owner specifically.
Yeah, and that's very timely. I'm getting a lot of questions about the code, and it really is important. There's a lot of new opportunity for businesses that to take advantage, and the new tax law is very favorable to small business.
You bet.
And it's especially favorable to businesses that are sole proprietors, but there's a lot of things we need to do to get them ready to take advantage of it. If they go through the whole year and then come back and say, okay, let's look at how I can save money now, based on the changes in the tax code, where there's things that have to be done in advance to take advantage of it. And I won't give the specifics, then they won't want to see me, will they? But I will sit down and help people. And we have a guarantee. It's double money back guarantee. Whatever our fee is to save you money, let's say it's a $2,000. Just use that as an arbitrary number. Well, if we don't save you $4,000 in taxes in this coming tax year, well, we're going to give you your money back, plus we're going to give you your blueprint for free. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
The biggest problem I have is getting people to believe me. You can't do that. Well, I did it for myself, and I've done it for a lot of other people too. And one of the things we have that we're fortunate to have is a long history of success, where doctors and lawyers and plumbers, all ranges of business, have given testimonials. We call them case studies, where they actually say how much we saved them the first year, and they actually give their contact information. I've never seen anything like it, that people are that pleased with the work you've done for them, that they say, here, have them call me, and this is how much they saved me. Pretty impressive, don't you think?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, we lost our lights. We're actually here, though.
We still see you.
There we go. All this brilliance here on this table with you and two guys has made the lights pop.
Shorten the circuits out.
Yeah, too much positive energy. It made the lights go out. Had to turn the circuit breaker back on.
I love it. So we're diving in. I love this. And for everyone who's listening, just tuning in, George and Dave are giving us some amazing insight on tax, on being able to grow our businesses and save money and keep the money that we're making. And I love that you guys mentioned that you have a double your money back guarantee, or we'll get that money back, and the blueprint as well. That is beautiful. And then I love the distinction between the first generation CPAs, which is just historical. We look back on the data and say, okay, well, here's how much we can save, versus a proactive approach, a consultative approach that has us know what we can do moving forward. But if we look to this consultative approach, the second generation approach, then we won't be able to get those savings and the deductions if we don't plan ahead. So that's why now is the perfect time to start getting into the swing of motion of that. So we don't wait until it's next year and then we say, oh, wait, 2018, where'd you go? I thought I had all these opportunities to save money and build my wealth, and now it's too late. So get into action around that now. I love that. So what are some of the biggest, I would say, kind of shortcuts that we can take to being more effective with our taxes, to being able to save money as businesses? What do you guys know of? What are some of the tips and inside scoops that you can give our small business owners and entrepreneurs and solopreneurs who tune into this show, who want to be able to save more money on their taxes and be more financially abundant and wealthy?
Want me to take some?
Yeah, please.
I think probably the biggest, most important concept and strategy for saving money on taxes is, what kind of entity should I have? So majority of small business owners, they always begin as a sole proprietor. As a sole proprietor, you have about 8 times the risk of being audited as an S corporation. Wow. Or an LLC, limited liability company, with an S corp election. And CPAs don't really explain to business owners why they should be a certain entity versus another one. I'll constantly ask folks, well, why are you an LLC? Why are you a C corporation? Why are you this? Why are you that? And the most common answer, I don't know. It started that way. So you want to talk with somebody who can explain the different entities and not so much the legal aspects of it and why I want a corporate shield or so forth, but really the tax implications. So we're not attorneys. We don't play attorneys on TV. We don't act like them. So we always suggest that you pass everything that we produce, which is for tax planning, past your own particular attorney. And if you need a referral, we can give you one. But we're focused all our might on the tax first. It's the tip of the spear. We like to say, if you get the taxes right, then everything else follows. Nothing else matters if taxes are wrong. So we get the taxes right first. So an entity is good. Then we want to know, basically, in terms of what you're earning, how much of that is consumed in lifestyle. So if I'm earning $500,000 in my business in profit, but I'm consuming $495,000 of that $500,000 in my house payment, car payments, taking trips, and so forth, not a lot left over for tax planning. Right. You're consuming all that profit. But if I'm consuming half of it, then I've got a couple of $100,000 there that we can recirculate and make things look like a business expense. We can find that we like to use the term of a toll bridge. I can go over a different toll bridge and pay a lower tax rate. So there really are 4 strategies. They're called timing, shifting, code, and product. So a timing strategy would be like an IRA, a individual retirement account, or a 401k, where I'm shifting income to a later time where it'll be taxed. Or an entity shift would be, I have a sole proprietorship. I'm going to become an S corporation. Now I'm going to shift some income from earned income to a distribution, more of a profit-based income, and save on self-employment tax. Timing involves, so that's a good example of shifting. Another example of shifting is, I have children that I could put to work in my company. So anybody from the age of 7 to college age, I can give them a job in my company. I'm always asked by businesses, well, what do I have them do? I don't know. It's your company. What can you have them do? You're the boss. Right. I'm not the boss. I can give you ideas, but you have to put them to work. But we give them guidelines on what you can pay them, and their income tax rate is usually much lower than the business owner's income tax rate. So there's an idea of shifting. Timing was a 401k, IRA. Code is just using the tax code that allows me to do a particular thing. So an example of a code would be renting my house. My business can rent my house for 14 days, And the cost of that has to go through a particular formula that we walk you through. So you can't just say, I'm going to rent my house for $1 million a day. The IRS would never approve that. So there's a formula that the IRS will buy that we put them through. But I can transfer, I can do that for 14 days in the year, and I don't have to report that as income, personal income. So I can transfer up to $7,000 usually in from my company to me personally and not pay tax on that. If I'm at a 30% tax rate, that's $2,100 in taxes saved on that $7,000. That's an example of code. A product example would be, and George and I love these, I like to call it tax-free retirement. So we can use a product, usually it's an insurance product that has tax advantages to it. Your CPA doesn't know about this, but it's called an Index Universal Life Plan. It's an investment grade product that has tax benefits on the backside. Post-tax money goes in, but tax-free money comes out. It's better than a 401k, better than an IRA. And I can actually dip into it at any time I need to as it's growing using that compounding strategy before. So timing, shifting, code, and product are all aspects of everything falls into those four categories and some examples that your listeners can utilize.
And those are you would say those are examples of tax saving strategies and different categories of those tax saving strategies?
Correct.
Cool.
You know, I have clients that are CPAs, and I have CPAs that I work for and tax attorneys in developing tax strategies on a proactive basis. Because frankly, as we've mentioned, they're not trained to do that. They're trained to be corporate accountants and make sure you're not in trouble and the forms are right. And you meet all the deadlines. I was sitting with one the other day, and I mentioned this product he talked about. Oh, you mean the Roth for the rich? I said, well, you don't have to be rich.
That's right.
We can make it work. It's easier if you're rich to make it work because you have more disposable income, hopefully. But we can make it work either way. One of the things that you'll find is one of the main differences between a CFP, which I am, and a CPA, personality. CFPs have a personality. That's humor. You said to be funny, right?
Yes.
It's an attempt at it anyway.
Well, another aspect about CPAs, just to put a little finer point on that designation, certified public accountants were actually invented to work in public companies.
Right.
And the marketing around the CPA discipline was so good, so many people went into that. There weren't enough positions in public companies for a CPA. So they hung their shingle out and started defaulting to basically tax preparers and bookkeeping and so forth. And they're very good at that. But we have the CPA exam study guide in our office. I think it was the 2015 exam study guide, and it's literally 6 inches thick. And I went through that one weekend just with a fine-tooth comb to see if there was any proactive tax planning notes in there. Out of 1,700 pages, how many pages do you think are dedicated to proactive tax planning? 1 page. One. Actually, it was a half a page and 4 strategies. And the strategies, and most of the listeners will have heard this from their CPA, well, try and get as much expenses paid out before the end of the year as you can. Push as much income as you can out to next year. By the way, both of those strategies only work for 1 year.
Exactly.
And do an IRA. And what's the fourth one? Do an IRA. And I can't remember the fourth one. But it falls into those categories. And that's just basic stuff.
Totally.
And the first two only work for 1 year, because then you're just pushing the ball around. It's all relative. It's the same. But our average savings per business owner is $21,000, and we have unique. I have one really good story, my favorite story I could share in terms of the magnitude of savings. Not everybody would fall into this category, but these folks work very hard. They own 6 McDonald's restaurants in Fort Worth, Texas, and they emigrated legally from Mexico. The wife used to drop her husband off at the post office, which is the job that he had. And as she dropped him off, she noticed a help wanted sign in McDonald's. This is about 30 years ago. So she started working at McDonald's as a line employee cashier. Fast forward 30 years later, they own 6 McDonald's restaurants. Their annual income is about $1.5 million.
Awesome.
And what do you think, Chris, these folks paid in taxes? Again, the rich not paying their fair share. What do you think they paid in taxes?
I would say like 750, like half of that would go to taxes or something like that. Maybe 20-30%.
Yeah, they paid just under $350,000 in taxes.
Wow.
So, and again, a client like that, they have much more money than they need to consume and that they consume in lifestyle. And so they were very desperate. That's a good income for 2 or 3 people, their tax bill, right? So don't tell me the wealthy don't pay their fair share. We did their tax plan and we threw the kitchen sink in there. We got to do a lot of different things. And it was just over their tax savings, annual tax savings was just over $120,000 a year.
Wow.
I got to deliver that plan. And so I said, okay, so you guys paid $10,000 for your tax plan. And we found just over $120,000 in tax savings. And I turned the page and I looked up and the owner's eyes filled with tears. I said, what's the matter? And she goes, Dave, $120,000, we can go hire 2 or 3 managers and we might be able to eat out and not eat at McDonald's. And here's the point. What do business owners do with this windfall? They plow it back into the company. They hire people. They get equipment. They do everything that the government says they want to do. But when they suck all the oxygen out of the room, a small business owner can't invest in the business.
Right.
But that's what they're going to do. And they're doing fantastic. They're one of my favorite clients. They're awesome.
Wow. That's amazing. I love it. I love hearing these stories of prosperity. I'm curious, how have you found using other people's testimonials, and George, you mentioned case studies. How have you found that affects your business and your ability to grow your business and have people want to take the next step and want to trust you?
Well, I think it's very compelling when even someone in your same town, if you live in one of the surrounding towns, like one of these is in Rockwall, and I happen to be from Rockwall, operate my practice in Rockwall. It's very compelling when you say, well, call these guys if you want to, or don't, but here's what they have to say. And when we finish with yours, I'm going to need this from you too.
Right.
So it challenges them to let me prove to them that I can do the same for them. What are your thoughts on that? You've had a little more experience in that.
Well, I think Chris, you'll really appreciate this. When we started the case study approach, as opposed to just getting a quote unquote testimonial, our idea was, let's get a piece that is about them. Let's talk about their business and what they do, so that this little case study with a little paragraph on the bottom about what financial gravity did for them in terms of taxes, but that this thing is so good that it could be used as a marketing piece by them. They could get copies made and hand people out, and it was just a little paragraph about us, about 5 paragraphs about them and their business. And so as a result, they definitely wanted to put their contact information on there. And we don't, it doesn't feel like we're bragging and we're arrogant. We really want to brag about the client and what they're doing, because I'm telling you, I have never had so much fun dealing with business owners. It's amazing, the creativity. Why'd you start this business? There's a guy who was in the insurance game, and he just noticed, and he was doing roofing. So he was in 2 things, had insurance experience and contracting experience. And he noticed that he was looking at roofs that actually had hail damage from a hailstorm 10 years ago. But now they can't, it's been too long, they can't make a claim on their insurance company. He thought, just the creative thinking of an entrepreneur, I wonder if there's weather data that I could tap into and I could alert people. Wow. And sure enough, he took free data from the government and created a subscription service. It's called Hail Alert. And now people subscribe to it. And he needed tax planning because a lot of people, and so he can let business owners know, you just had hail. Get an insurance adjuster out there and find out. Another lady who, she and her husband lost their jobs And they just noticed that the furniture around their apartment pool needed straightening up. So they went to their office and said, hey, we'll straighten that up for you for a fee. Started doing that. She's now crossing over almost $750,000 in revenue. And all she does is straighten up around pools. I am constantly flabbergasted at the creativity of the American entrepreneur and how tough they are. And as they work through all the different aspects of doing this business in the enterprise and how we get to help add to their bottom line like that. It's really a rewarding thing to do.
Yeah,
I agree. And the fact that a lot of times people take this extra money and they'll hire other people.
Mm-hmm.
I read today that employment is up 22% over this time last year in Dallas-Fort Worth.
Wow.
And that's huge.
Yeah,
and a lot of that is because there's more money because of the tax reduction strategies that we offer, but more so because the tax reduction plan that's come out. Well, I've got more money, so I'm gonna hire more people. So either I have to work less, have more time with my family, or I can build my business even bigger and hire even more people.
Yeah. Wow. That's
Not paying taxes is a wonderful thing if it's done legally.
Yeah. And having the right partner to support you in that strategy. And, Dave, you were mentioning earlier that you were a business consultant. So that strategy of how to grow a business as well as the financial side of knowledge is super important and a great asset for anyone who visits you and talks to either one of you. So I really acknowledge you guys for that. So we're beginning to come towards the end of this interview, and we just want to know what are the final takeaways? Is there any point that we didn't really get to that you wanted to dive into, you wanted to make sure our audience received from this interview? Anything else, final key takeaways?
Well, I think the first thing is you're not going to know until you have an assessment. And we've tried to make this as painless as possible. I always like to say 15, 30 minutes, you can save probably at least 20%. Okay. The promise that we make, our guarantee, the 2 times guarantee, George says it's a $2,000 blueprint. We're on the hook for $4,000. That's minimum. So anything above that is the business owners to keep. We don't raise our fee. Right. And if it's a 2,000 blueprint and we find $1,999.99, we give the blueprint to you for free. Implementation will not be free. That's where the rubber meets the road. But I would say that the biggest mistake that folks make is they think, well, I've got a CPA and they're doing it. So the takeaway is pick up that phone, give George a call. Let's find out what the situation is. I could be tax efficient already. I've got a second generation CPA. I didn't even know it. That confirmation is worth the assessment, 15 to 30 minutes. But I will tell you, it's more than likely you are not tax efficient and you're leaving money on the table. You are overpaying your taxes.
And at the end of the day, what do you have to lose? You can only win.
That's right.
And the biggest win is I'm already doing everything right like I thought I was. Yeah. But they charged me $2,000, they saved me $13,000. No. I liked it so much I bought into the company.
That's right.
Right. Wow.
I can write you a check. Is the company for sale?
It actually can buy shares.
Okay.
Financial Gravity is a public company, so if somebody wanted to invest, they could go and actually buy shares of it. We expect to take over the world soon.
That's right.
Yes. I love it.
Because Joe says that we can.
Yes. Beautiful. Awesome. So how do people stay connected with you? What do you want them to do next?
Well, I think give me a phone call.
Okay. And what's your number?
972-636-1423. The email is George. It's gwarner.financialgravity, gwarner.financialgravity@gmail.com.
All right. Beautiful. Great stuff, guys. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. Thank you so much for giving this wisdom and sharing your experience along the journey and helping save these business owners money. We love empowering people to be their greatest possible selves, and it's so clear that when we empower the people around us, we empower the people who we care about to succeed, then it all comes back to us. So you guys are doing great work, and thank you so much for helping people be financially free and plan for their future and create an epic next generation. I know I'm a part of that process, and we're giving back together. So thank you so much for the work that you do, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it. It's
Chris.
an honor.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You guys have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks.